So we'll make a start seeing everyone's here tonight. So tonight we're going to go through, have a look, let me change this to student. So tonight we're going to go through setting up levels and grids, and then we're going to insert a DWG file into our project, and then we're going to draw that house up sort of thing. So we'll put the walls and windows and doors in, and then depending how we go for time tonight, we might start the roof and the floor, sort of thing. So, and then next week we'll sort of continue on with that project. So weeks 3 and 4 sort of align. It's sort of like pretty much the same sort of session. So I sort of flip it around the other way. So if you guys just want to jump into Revit, has anyone got any questions from last week while we're waiting for that to open? So you don't need the file from last week. Just we need to start a new project using the architectural template. So if you guys cast your mind back to when we had a look at that hotel file the first week, this one, that the plumbing guys are probably really familiar with. So I'll just let this, you guys don't need to open this up, but so there are some exercises in here about setting up levels or datum elements. So setting up levels and creating structural grids. I don't tend to do them in the class. They can be there for you to sort of refer to later, but they're very American. So I'll run through that in a second for you. So what have we got? Oh, it's all American. So here we go. We have, that's probably not the best elevation, seeing it. So in this hotel project, we have 8 floors, a roof and a parapet level. I think in the first week I said if it's blue, it means it's a hyperlink, so you can double click on it, or it's got a floor plan associated to it. If it's black, it has no level at all. It's just a space in time sort of thing, just a marker. So really good for do window head heights, or if you want to put a level in for the overall ridge height of a job or something like that, or like your ground line or something like that. So these ones look a little bit different to what comes out of the box as well in Revit. The difference being, as I'm sure you guys are probably all aware, let's see how well this works. In Australia, you'd have a finished floor level on the plan, and then you'd have a finished ceiling level on the plan. So, as you can see, the way that America does it and the way that Revit does it, they only put the one level in, which is why you end up having a floor plan, ceiling plan, and potentially a structural plan as well. So in America, you just put one level in, and the floor plans are all sort of worked off of this. So the other confusing thing I'm going to introduce to you guys tonight is our view depth and where is it on there? Oh, it's not going to show me on there. So in your floor plan, you sort of have view range. So you guys might just want on your floor plans, on your project, you've got this blank, just come down to view range, and just hit the show there and open that up. This is probably one of the hardest things to wrap your head around in Revit. Has everyone got that open, or just on the floor plan? On the properties you've got view range, and then hit show. Scroll down in that view. So I get you guys to look at it because it's really small on my screen and it's not going to get any bigger. It's probably a little bit easier if you have to see if the properties palette and your project browser or doc like mine where you get the full thing. So if it's half, you have to scroll down a bit and find it. So
where it actually is.
Yeah. So show there. So if for a moment you imagine we're just drawing one level, Revit automatically, and this will change for our ceiling plans and our structural plans. I'm not really too sure with the structural plans. I've never used them, so I've never seen what they're like. So this primary range stuff here changes in each one of those if I opened up a ceiling plan, my cut plane would probably be 2200 or something like that, or 2400, and my top would probably be the next level above or something like that. So if you have a look here, we've got one is our primary range top, so up here, so that's as far up as you can see in that floor plan. Our primary range cut plane, 2, so when we draw a floor plan, generally at 12, 1500, depending on is a cut through the building. Now normally when you're drawing CAD, you just show anything above or below it that doesn't touch the cut plane. In Revit, because you're drawing a model, you need to manipulate the view range in just that section to show anything that's above or below. We'll touch on that a bit later though. Then you have 4 here, which is our view depth. So 4 is, I can't see 4.
This one is
down here. So that's how far you can look down. 5 is our primary range, so that's here. 6 is our view depth, which again is here, and then 7 is our view range, so that's how far you can see, thing. So if I just close that at the moment, or exit out that one, and jump into a ceiling plan, and go view range. So see how the numbers in my primary range are set differently. So my top is 0, and it's the level above, and my cut plane is set to 2300. So that's how Revit will set up levels, which is all great when you're just drawing one level, but what do you do when you draw 2? So if you guys just want to open up in your project that you started tonight, again, we don't need to save this one. This one's just we're just going to go through drawing some levels, setting up some levels and things. So again, I think I mentioned last week, there's certain things you do when you first start a job in Revit. Setting up the levels is one of them, because that defines how high your walls and things like that are. Ideally, you probably want to know what ceiling heights or something like that you want straight away. So 24 would be a minimum, 27's pretty common these days. 3 meters is becoming increasingly common, thing. Like I'm seeing lots of 3 meters.
ceiling level.
And occasionally I've seen 3.3 lately as well. So
depends on this one. But
depends on
2.7, 2720 people
Yeah.
take, or 3 meter people take ceiling level.
depends on how much coin people have got.
Yeah,
generally.
you are right. How much coin people have got.
So if you guys just want to open up, it doesn't matter which elevation to open up, east, north, south or west. I reckon you used the wrong template.
This is the wrong one.
That's the wrong one. Just close that. Close that again. And don't save it. Let's go to new. And just choose the architectural template. And okay. And let's open up the relation. So has everyone only got 2 levels?
Yeah.
Cool.
None at the moment.
Got none? So did you use the template we started or?
No, we didn't.
Oh, if you open up the elevation, like this elevation. Yeah. So we hit plus there, and then you double click these on the elevation. Cool. So out of the box, the architectural template's got 2 levels set up in Revit. So if you're just doing a single story, it's really easy. If you're doing a double story, it's a little bit more difficult. But I'm just going to show you how to put levels in and what you can do to modify them and things like that after the fact too. So Revit does have some idiosyncrasies, and it likes things done a certain way, and it can't change it after the fact. So thankfully, it takes 2 seconds to set things up. So to move levels, you can just click on them. So a bit like the dimensions last week that we were doing, you get a temporary dimension that comes up. You can also type in here, let's go 2700, or you can type in the temporary dimension that comes up. So if I go 2400 there, it moves. So this number here is relative to the real world. So 0 is sea level. And then if you have a job, I used to do a lot of work in the LA Hills, so it wasn't uncommon to have a bench level of like 300 plus off AHD, so the Australian Height Datum. So I'd move a project up to that sort of thing. It was a lot easier than trying to work out the maths around that. So it's just a case you can type in there whatever you want. This is set to millimeters. You can change the number, the metric here to meters if you want, and things like that. I always get confused because I jump in. Meters to millimeters is not my strong suit. So I'm just going to make that 2400. 27, sorry. Can everyone sort of see this little zigzag thing on their screen when they've selected the level? I'm not going to zoom in because it does not get any bigger. If you just go and click on that, so that breaks the level marker. So it allows you to sort of move the text or up and down. So if you just want to make your drawing a bit clearer, this is more evident when you do 2 stories, because you've got a ceiling level and then a floor level 400-ish away from each other. So the blue dot on the left sort of can go out anywhere, can't go past the one on the right, and the one at the top can't go past the one on the left, sort of thing. Depends on what your aesthetic you like. I was always sort of this sort of person anyway. Just have it set up hard like that. If I zoom out a little bit as well, notice that I have this little box on the end with a tick in it, and a box on the other end without a tick. Does anyone have a guess what happens if I hit it and put the tick on it? No, the box, not the padlock, the box. I always have this issue on this computer. So I hit the tick there, it puts the name on the other side, sort of thing.
And the tick will remove the label will go.
And the tick removes it as well. I always have issues clicking on this one, sort of thing. This doesn't like. So that's moving level and modifying level. You'll also notice that you have this sort of circle, and then you have a padlock. If you just grab that circle and move it, it takes the 2 levels with it. So if you've got a really long building, you can drag it out. If you've got a small elevation, if it's a long building, it's generally skinny. So you can make it tidy that way. So that's sort of modifying levels. To create another level, it's under architecture and datum. So it's a bit weird. It's probably in the right spot, but it's just not how you follow the process. Like I would think it's under view myself, but it's not. It's a datum. So again, you just click on datum. It comes up with a couple of options with the drawing tool. You can either just draw a line or you can pick lines. In the options, this is really important. So you have make plan view, and then you also have plan view types. So if I just click on plan view types, I have a ceiling plan, floor plan, and structural plan highlighted. So if I untick a structural plan, and then I go draw a level. So drawing one is just a case of clicking. I tend to go left to right, and I also try and line it up with the previous levels I've drawn, because you'll notice it automatically locks in alignment the levels, sort of thing. So now I can just grab that one and it just moves them all together. You can go right to left. My sort of just habit is going left to right. So you can just, if I was doing a double story, I would just put a couple of levels in and then use the dimensions to move it after. And then you'll notice over in our project browser, I have a level 2 floor plan. I also have a level 2 ceiling plan. If I open that up again and tick structural plans, it doesn't matter where these levels go either, because you can rename them after the fact. You'll notice I now have a structural plan in my project browser come up. If I don't want a structural plan in my project browser, I don't want a structural plan at all. It's just a case of selecting the level under the tab you want in your project browser and just select and delete on the keyboard, and it deletes the floor plan. Is that making sense? So if you guys want to have a bit of play around at the moment, maybe we'll set up for a double story. Remember that zigzag just tidies thing, allows you to move the level. So you guys just want to have a bit of play around. 400 mid floor. With the drawing, you can also pick lines, which is a tool we probably haven't been through too much lately at all. So you can pick line, and then you can say we'll go 2400 upstairs. Just with the pick line one, be cautious. Just click once, because if you keep clicking, you're going to keep adding. So if you click it once and the computer needs to think, don't keep clicking. Can I undo? So if you guys want to have a bit of play around with that one, I'll come around and help. You can choose the ceiling heights yourself if you want, as well. So you go architecture and data. Yep, and then level. Only horizontally. Yeah. So I'd probably start over here and just draw over. Yeah. You can draw them in anywhere, but only just go horizontally. Yeah. Because I'm on the east one, so the section cuts through my east view, as we're within north one. I don't think it. No, that's where I had to think too. So click on the line if you want to change number. you want to go to the pick line tool. So at the moment, so that one, if you just drew a line, it'd be offset 2.7 up or down sort of thing. So
This one.
sorry.
This offset. No, that offset.
Use or use the pick line tool. Just so you hover over. So the pick line tool can be a little bit fiddly. If your cursor was like slightly down a bit more, it'd probably draw it this way. If it's slightly up.
Yeah,
Up.
yeah.
So when I'm starting, well, if I was to start a new job outside of work these days, I just put the levels in. I wouldn't worry about making them all pretty or things like that at the moment. I sort of might make them a bit readable, but making them all like this and all that is something I tend to do at the end of a project because I don't know how big a building's going to be or things like that, sort of thing. So how do you make I think it refers to as a non-story level. So remember that hotel, we had a parapet at the top that was black, so it didn't have a floor plan associated to it. So if I go back into architecture and datum, does anyone want to have a guess how you might make a non-story level? So it's not any floor plans or anything like that. Yep. So again, you can just create, I'm just going to do this for to show you guys. So you notice it's black. I get no level 5 in my project browser at all, and things like that. So you're not going to want level 1, or you might want ground floor level, and you probably want ground floor finished ceiling level or something like that, and first floor finished floor level, and first floor finished ceiling level and things like that on your elevations. So you can rename these levels, otherwise they'd be pretty useless, particularly seeing if I was to delete level 5 again with the door tags last week and draw another level in. It starts off at level 6, so not being able to rename them would be pretty silly. So to rename things, the levels in Revit, it's a case of clicking on the level, and then you'll notice that the text box you're able to rename. So I'm just going to go GFFFL and hit enter. Now when you hit enter, you get this warning, and this is one of those ones that I would never suggest that you tick the do not show me this message again box. So would you like to rename corresponding views? If you are setting up a project for the first time, you most likely want to tick yes. And you'll notice that in my project browser, ground floor is now replaced with GFFFL. You can also rename, I'm pretty sure it works the other way. So if on my floor plan, I want to have that named as, you just click on it once, or right click and rename it. Sort of naming conventions can be quite important here. You'll notice that it goes your project browser goes alphabetically. So you may want to put 00 ground plan or something like that in your project browser. Now if I click enter now, I don't want to rename any corresponding views because I want that on my project browser but not on my elevation. So I would click no here, and you notice that my elevation stays the same, but in my project browser I can actually work out what the shorthand is, or just I can read the full name. So have a bit of play around with that sort of thing. The cool thing that they added in 2019 as well is you can now see your levels in 3D. I'm yet to actually use this on a job, other than for myself. But you can, like, when you start drawing a building, you can see where walls are going, and you can hover over a level and see if it goes up to the right thing and things like that. That's just a little FYI. Once we start drawing things, you can check it later. So I would obviously name that GF. So the only annoying thing about saying no to that is it doesn't update your ceiling plan names, so you need to do it again, but it's probably a bit easier than trying to read first floor or FF, FFL and things like that. So I don't tend to actually have my ceiling plans in the floor plan in my project at all. So you could probably make it a bit easier for yourself by just deleting your floor plans assigned to ceiling levels out. So like that, I delete that one, and then you can do the same and delete your floor plans out of your ceiling levels. So I delete my GF FFL out of my ceiling plan just to save confusion. And the other thing I would do as well is when we start drawing a job later, generally always minimize the ceiling plans, because I occasionally do it. I'll be able to come down here, look at a sheet, go back up, scroll back up to and I'll go, oh cool, there's the plan I want, open it up, go, where's my project gone? And I'm in the ceiling plan, not the floor plan, sort of thing. So we know the cut plane set up differently and the view range. So I tend to always tell you guys to minimize it as well. I tend to actually, when we start doing some actual projects, I'll get you guys to delete it because we don't need to worry about it at the moment. Just removes that extra layer of I've lost my work sort of thing that has happened or doesn't happen, but it can freak you out a bit sometimes. Does anyone want to guess how you might make a level that has a floor plan associated to it, just to a non-story level? So I want to make my finished floor, finished ceiling level, or first floor, finished ceiling level, just black, not have any levels assigned to it or views. So it's just a case of deleting. Obviously, I haven't deleted the right one yet. I have structural plans ticked. So if you delete floor plans out of your project after you've created a level, it'll just take it to a non-story level, so there's nothing assigned to it. Does anyone have a guess? Or does that freak anyone out? Because you might want to create a floor plan a bit later, a ceiling plan or something like that. So that's really easy again, because it's just a model. You just need to go to create a floor plan of any description of a level that's a non-story level. It's really easy. If you go to view, because you want to create a view, and create, and you want to create a plan view. So there you can select a floor plan, reflected ceiling plan, a structural plan, plan region. Just remember where this plan region is, because that's how we show things above or below the cut plane, which we'll probably touch on next week, I think. And then you've got an area plan there. We'll touch on area plans again in a bit. Just an FYI, don't ever use the room schedule and areas in Revit to calculate the building total, because it doesn't take into account half of the external wall, sort of thing. I learned that one the hard way. So I just go there, create a floor plan. You'll notice it comes up with the do not duplicate existing views already ticked. So if you just untick that one, you can create other floor plans there. So if I want to create my FCL, I can just click OK, and it comes up, opens it up, and there's a floor plan back up here. So it's not a tool I use very often. Again, with the way that I set up, or in Australia we seem to set up projects, and I'm also not doing ceiling plans and things like that. I tend to just have a floor plan and that's about it. So when I was, well, our drawings don't show level markers in that at the moment. But you can see, like, this would be a bit of a time-consuming exercise at the start, maybe for a waste of time, or might be a waste of time depending on how the building goes. So you also notice that in your 3D, like, it'll sort of snap in line here. Might just be able to see the dashed line between my cursor and my first floor finished floor level. There's a couple. Revit does sort of snap, so it has a dimension snap. So when you're dimensioning things, it'll snap it to whatever the dimension is set to. So it's just a slight, like, it's almost like a slight bump. So if you just run your hand across something and you feel a slight bump, it's sort of like that with the cursor. Like, it just sort of just catches there for a moment, and you sort of have to just be really fine with the cursor, sort of thing. And you also notice there I get a horizontal one, so it sort of snapped across, so they can both be the same. I think that might be an improvement on 2018, because I haven't seen that before. Sort of, it was a bit more difficult to get them to match. They might have just added that in as a fix but not told anyone, sort of thing at a time. So anyone got any questions for levels so far?
If I want to add one more grading between this one, then offset command same.
You want to add one more level?
Yeah, in the between these two. Offset one.
You can probably just draw one and then you can move it after. So with the levels as well, you can always chuck a dimension on, sort of thing. So just, we haven't really done too many dimensions yet, have we? Which is just really the temporary dimensions. Correct. So that's right, isn't it? We just don't use the temporary ones. So dimensioning in Revit, well, dimensioning drawings is obviously what they're for, so the builder can go out on site and build it. So under annotate dimensions, there's quite a few dimensions in here. Generally, the align dimension is the one that I use 99.99% of the time when I'm dimensioning, or maybe 98%. Angular dimension I'll use to find out the angles of things. I probably wouldn't dimension it too often. I might occasionally use the radial dimension. I think I used the linear dimension for the first time ever this week.
But this linear is maximum used in AutoCAD.
Yeah, I think I used it for an angle when I had a splayed wall, and I just wanted to show what it sort of was. That's where I used it. But align dimension is pretty much the one that I used.
But align we used in any angle one
Yeah.
or this one.
I can show you why. Well, I go to that. Just go to wall. So I go to annotate and dimension, so align dimension. So there's a couple of options that come up for dimension. So at the moment we'll just focus on the location line of the dimension. So it will generally default to wall center lines. I've got no idea why you'd ever dimension to a center line of a wall. Seems pretty useless to me. So I generally change. I have that generally set as wall faces or faces of core, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm dimensioning lightweight, I'll dimension to the stud. But if I'm dimensioning brick veneer, I dimension to the 240 brick sort of thing. So it's just a case of selecting something. So here I'll select that wall, and then selecting another wall, the face of a wall, and then you can continue the string. So by selecting somewhere else, coming up here, so I go to my east elevation. So I wanted to do this entire, set my levels up. So instead of this being 27 and that being 31, it was 400 mid floor or something like that, I'll do that. Now, if you guys want to have a bit of play with this, if you've just done what I've done, I really don't like it when I see people do this. So they go like that, and then you've got to click off into blank space to place the dimension. So they'll end up putting in 3 separate dimensions like that, and they'll line them up perfectly, which it looks fine on a drawing. So see how it sort of snaps to align itself with each other. So I really don't want to see you guys doing that. It's really inefficient and not the best way. It's more I see people do it with the window dimension string more than anything. So you can click multiple times on any dimension. So if I just go this one again, do that. If I accidentally don't click quite where I want it to be and it exits me out of the tool, don't despair, you can change it again. So you select a dimension, and up here you have this awesome tool called Edit Witness Lines. So I click on that. You'll notice it activates where I've selected for my dimension, and I can add or subtract bits and pieces sort of thing. So you can't take these 3 dimensions here and make them one string, which SarchiCAD got that function. To take those 3 dimensions and make it into one string. Okay. So I don't know, I just don't do it that way anymore. So have a bit of play around with putting dimensions on these levels. So if I just the only time I used linear dimension was I wanted to show. That doesn't have me. That's not in the way. So with the align dimension as well, you can just pick up, if you come over, if I just show you guys, you can hit tab and it will select through things. So I can pick that endpoint there. So if you've got a boundary on the wall on the boundary on a slight angle or something like that, you can just pick the point, and then I can come up here and not hit caps lock and hit tab instead, and tab through and get that point. And then, but I wanted that. I wanted that dimension the other day. That's why I use linear. That's the only time I've ever used it. The other thing with dimensioning, which is cool, you'll get frustrated by it. Revit can only dimension things that are 100% parallel to each other. So you notice if I go back into dimension now, the keyboard shortcut is DI. It's up there on the quick access toolbar. It won't let me select that point. So just keep that in mind that Revit it needs to be 100% parallel or it won't dimension. That tends to be why I use that angular dimension sometimes. So you see that's now 91.86, so I can just go 90 there. Depending on how, I have had to go to 12 decimal places, I'm pretty sure, to get that to actually be 90. It was a bit ridiculous. It wasn't my job, it was a colleague's at a previous workplace. So when people tell you at Revit's not accurate enough, like it is. I do believe an engineering firm was using, so any new built structure they use Revit, but any existing structure they use CAD, because it's fairly hard to fudge the numbers sort of thing in Revit like that. If the wall's not quite right or something like that, but have a bit of play around with putting some dimensions on and moving your levels now. So you might want to go to 27 ceilings upstairs using the levels. You might want to change the mid-floor to 500. Again, if I was to do that, I would probably move my floor, and then I'd move my ceiling, unless you worked out the maths to what you actually need to add your ceiling, move your ceiling up sort of thing. So I'm going to bang on about it a lot in the next couple of weeks, but it makes sense to have a template set up, so you're not having to do this every time you start a new job. So even if you have a single story template set up and a double story template set up, or a couple of stories or something like that, or whatever you sort of draw normally, this sort of stuff really annoys me setting it up at the start of a job. Like I'll do it, but it does get a bit tedious after a while. So dimension is a byproduct of where an element is. So you need to select the element that you want to move. So you want to select the level line. So you select that one. That. You want to select the element, not the dimension. Yeah. And now see how your temporary dimension. I think it'd be difficult because you've got zoom in a bit. So just a bit dimensions are just a byproduct of where things are in the model. So clicking on the dimension is not going to change anything. So you want to select the element you want to change, so be it a wall level or whatever, and then your temporary dimension will go blue. Sort of thing. Yeah, so it's just, a lot of people struggle to wrap their head around that the first couple of weeks. It's just, if you move a wall, it's not the dimension you want to do, it's the wall you want to move, the dimension will just adjust for you after. So the last thing I'm going to show you about levels before we put some grids in this project, and then grids are really easy. They're pretty much just like levels, but the other way around. So you guys select a level, you'll notice that you sort of get this little circle, this bubble, and you've also got a 3D above it. It's probably going to be easier if you see it on your screens. I really wish they'd have an educational version of Revit where this stuff was slightly bigger, that you guys could actually see it, because if I zoom in a bit, it's not going to get any bigger. So I select the level, and then I have this 3D here, and a little bubble. So these are the extents, 3D and 2D extents of your model. So actually, there's two things I need to show you before we go on. So if I drag this, and if I go to my west elevation, they're the same. That's it. Sort of like they'll be the same length, no matter what. If I hit the 2D here, so I've hit the 3D, notice it's no longer a circle, it goes to a blue dot, and I can grab that and change it just in that view. So if I go back to my east one, notice it's all the same still, but in my west one, it's different. So the 2D extents only applies to the view that you're in. The 3D extents applies to the whole model. It's a little bit not something you want to mess with too often, particularly if you're setting up a template sort of thing. And then if you just drag it back to where the circle is and that docks sort of thing, it goes back to being a 3D extents. It's not something I use very often, but it's good to know it's there, particularly if you're showing a raised portico level, a garage floor level, or something like that, and you just want to show it on one side and not it to be the whole thing, or a split in a job or something like that. You've got two floor levels. You don't want your floor levels to go all the way through each job or each level sort of floor elevation. You can 2D extends it and just cut it back just in that view. There's not that many flat sites in Adelaide are becoming rarer and rarer, particularly close to town. So split level housing is probably becoming more popular to deal with the slopes sort of thing. The last thing I'm going to show you guys with the extents or our levels. So you guys notice I open up my west elevation. My levels look exactly nothing like what I've just done in my east elevation. Close those. So under view, I can go use it. Where is it? Tile views. It used to be called window tile, but because they're now a bit different, I'm just going to close that. So you can sort of do this sort of thing, have them side by side. So you notice I've made these ones sort of look a little bit more legible than what they look like when they're just drawn straight away. So you can copy what you've done on one elevation to the other. So if I just select a level here, you've got the tool up here called Propagate Extents, and it copies the extents and the appearance of datum elements parallel views. So I click on that one, I click on my west elevation, and it's the same. So I can do my windows right to left, go propagate extents, go to my west elevation, and it copies it all across. You still have to do your north one, and then you can copy that across to your south one. Doing it twice instead of 4 times. So it's better, but it's not perfect. I have had people ask me questions of how do I get the exact same thing on my north and south, and I haven't worked out an answer because I don't think there is one. If they want that exact same, whatever that measurement works out on their north one, it's, yeah, just got to judge it by eye, unfortunately. So that is pretty much levels. As I mentioned, there is an exercise you guys can sort of do at your own time, setting up levels. You just add heaps of levels. For this one, it's like go floor 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm pretty sure if you rename it floor 1, it'll rename it floor, and then you put another level in it, go floor 2, floor 3, floor 4, sort of thing. So we'll put in some grids and then we'll get started on inserting a DWG file into our project. So you guys want to open up the floor plan. It doesn't matter which floor plan. I'm just going to open up my ground floor one. So again, grids are a datum element. You'll notice that when you're in a floor plan, you can't draw a level. But you may have noticed before when we were in elevation, you can draw a level or a grid. So grids are pretty much the same thing as levels in Revit, can be in floor plans, but they don't produce plans or anything like that. So again, you get the same sort of bubble, 3D extents or 2D extents. You can do a multi-segment grid, but don't worry about that. I don't think I've ever seen one on a project. Can be a curve grid or something like that. That generally costs money, so I wouldn't have seen too many. So you can just put them in. Again, this is something you can just put in and then fix up later. The spacings. So grids are really for intersections of structural elements. So you might just want to put in a couple. So say put in 5. Doesn't matter what spacing you put them at. Then you might want to go into your dimension. I'll show you a cool tool that Revit's got. So if you just pick up all 5 grids, and then you'll notice down here I've got that little EQ and a little line through it. And if I hit the EQ, it will space them automatically to, this one's worked out to 5850 straight away. That's generally the best thing I think most people love about Revit, is it equally spaces things without having to do the math. I just use the dimension and then hit the equals EQ. So go back to annotate. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to pick up each one? Yeah. 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 Place it. Yeah. And use that little EQ. Yeah. So just click off and make space. Yeah. Equals there. It was probably pretty close to being equal, I looked at it, so for now you know that it's good. Grid? Yeah. So again, you can put the bubble on by either side by clicking the little square sort of thing.
What is this continued dimension?
Okay. Modify. Select dimension. It'll be this one. So that's sort of a foundation to keep going or take things off. Yep. And then hit blank. You want to click off in blank space. So with the dimensions, you want to make sure when you're placing them and you want to finish the string, you sort of just click off in blank space somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you're dimensioning elevations, and I find it all the time, or roofs, it'll pick up the hatch pattern. So I thought I clicked off in blank space, but I've actually clicked on the hatch pattern of the brickwork or the roof or whatever, and it puts another string in, which can be a bit annoying. So the other thing with levels before we go on, so I just put one horizontally. If I just rename that one A, and then I go to create more levels, more grids, it will continue the numbers or the letters. But again, this is sort of like, you're not sure what the structural engineer is going to say on what the spacing is. Like, if you're putting in structural stuff, it's probably 6 meters is probably good. And then your grids also come up in your elevations as well. So I've got A, B, C, D, E there. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's pretty much grids and levels. Again, we're going to go through setting up grids for our next project anyway in a second. So I'll let you guys have a bit more play around with setting up grids. I think the exercise has got probably... So you end up setting up grids for the hotel. And then you add some columns. We can add some columns to this project, and then we'll just shut it and never look at it again. So I'll give you guys a little bit more time to have a bit of play around.
You align your ABC lines, didn't you?
Sorry?
You align your A, B, C, D, E, F.
I didn't equal the measurements, no.
We need to.
No. Just to show you it's there, really.
I did.
So you try to put the grids in. That one there. Yeah. So you just put a vertical section. As you can tell, sort of renaming this sort of stuff can get a little bit laborious, particularly if you add a grid in somewhere and have to renumber. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit like that. But again, this sort of stuff, like renumbering all that stuff, and that's like to the end. It's much rather just get drawing than do the boring stuff. So, I'm going to show you a tool that's in Revit that I don't use very often because I don't do structural stuff, but it's pretty cool when you get it to work. I never really had any success getting this tool to work, so So we go to architecture and column, and that'll take us into our modify tab. So you'll notice that your columns have a tool here to say, well, there's two tools here. So there's at grids or at an architectural column. So remember how last week we put our structural I-beam in and then we put a cladding around the column so it looked a bit nicer than just an I-beam. So you can put columns in. But this week we're going to put them in at grid intersections because we have some grids. So it's a case of clicking one grid, holding down Control on the keyboard, adding some grid intersections. So this is going to add, once I hit the tick up here, it should, fingers crossed, add some grids, columns to our intersections of A, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Hit the tick. I did that trick. It added them, but I didn't check to see if it said height. I want to make sure, see, I do it all the time. I forget to set it to height, not depth. That's very courteous of Revit. So when you're doing this method, it probably pays to do it from the level above. So I hit the tick now. Can I go height? Oh, okay. No. Okay, that's the process. Let's just check the 3D. So if you go back to column, set the, before you select at grids, change it to height instead of depth. Take it up to whatever level. So our first floor sitting level. And then select at grids. And then select one and then hold Control down and add. And you'll notice that the grids are going, or the columns are going in as I select my project. So that's probably one of the idiosyncrasies in Revit. Obviously, it will actually do it a certain way and set things up before. Hang on.
Like finish after that?
Sorry?
Did you say tick?
Tick the fin. Oh yeah, that would exit you out of the tool. But it looks like they put them in. They go in as you do it anyway. Like hitting the tick or hitting modify would probably do the same thing. Hitting the tick completes where the columns are. Hitting modify just deletes them.
Oh, let's not do that. I'm gonna get the tick.
Yeah.
Could you show it again?
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, just give me.
Oh, yeah, so finish.
So column under the options here, you want it should be set as a default. It always defaults back to depth. So you want to select height. Just choose whatever sort of level you want. As long as it's not the same level, it shouldn't give you that option. And then if you come up to add grids, and then you want to first click hold, and then select a grid. Once you've selected a grid, hold down Control, and add grids to that point. To that selection, I should say. And then once you've selected all the grids you want, sort of thing, hit the tick, and it places the grids. Don't hit modify like I did the first time. Yep, hold down Control. Yep, hit the tick to finish. Cool. And you can just check your 3D. And then hit the tick up there. Yep, and then just check your 3D. If you got some columns in there, we're probably done on setting up levels and grids. Probably more so grids. I reckon, having a guess, if you're to move your grids, the columns go with it. So that's possibly a bit helpful. Otherwise, you'd have to move all your columns and all that stuff after. So that's sort of helpful. So you guys can, if you guys have done that, you guys can shut this project down. There's no need to save it. Again, you've got that close inactive views up the top to close all the tabs that you might have opened up like I normally do.
You say close all of them?
Yep, we don't need it. So if you guys just want to jump onto the Learn site. So we want to download the floor plan DWG, the entry door with single side light.rfa, the internal cavity sliding.rfa, and the laundry door and window combination.rfa. I'm just going to hide if I can work out how to do it quickly. So you guys just want to download those to your USB drive.
So save file drive with Revit,
Yeah, save file, sorry. At the moment, we just really want our DWG. So if you've downloaded those, just open up Revit, start a new project with the architectural template again, and go OK. So everyone got that downloaded and started a new project with the architectural template. So if you guys just want to go to the Insert tab,
Send them onto our USB.
yeah,
That's what you're saying to do, ain't you?
yeah.
How do we do that? Right click.
File. Oh,
Because that's
off
saving.
so you go to that one and save file,
Yeah, which flicks him up in
which
here.
flicks it up there. So I just that's a good point.
That would probably work. Click that little
And then
button.
you can click that and go there.
Yeah.
So if you want to save them to your USB drives and they've gone to if you're using Firefox, they've gone to the little downloads thing here. You've got two options. So you can click on the little downloads arrow there and show all downloads and open a containing folder. Or you can go to, I tend to use Windows E, so File Explorer opens up. So if you go Windows, can you even do that anymore? No, I don't think you can. That's probably why I do it. So you come down, and then you go to Downloads. It should be in there as well. And just save it into your hard drive or USB. It's probably a good point. Linking and importing CAD files. So we go to the Insert tab. So Revit has the ability to link or import things. So do you want to have a guess why you might want to link something as opposed to importing something?
Change over every time you want.
That's the one.
Every time you get a new one.
Yeah. So sort of the way I look at it, more of an architectural basis, if you have a designer not using Revit, making changes to a floor plan that you're doing a model for, they might be showing the client floor plans to get it tweaked right, and you're just doing the Revit model, so when that sort of happens in the floor plan, you can do the 3D straight away. You would link a file if there's likely to be changes to it later. So a bit like FXREF, you can just reload things up again and it'll stay in the same place. If you are importing something, it's generally like probably a survey I would probably import, where it's not likely to change or things like that. So, or it's just an old, like, I guess for us at work, if it's a design that we haven't got in Revit yet, I'll just import the file because it's not like the design's not going to change, the floor plan's not going to change from what the CAD file is, sort of thing, at least for what I need it for. The customer's going to change the floor plan anyway. That's the main difference between linking and importing. If there's likely to be changes to the CAD file, for whatever reason, I would link it. If there's not likely to be any changes, I would import it. Or the one exception to that rule is if I was working on a laptop and I wasn't connected to a server all the time, every time I went to open up a project, it would want to link everything, and then I'd have to reload it and all that sort of stuff, so I might just import it and just deal with it after if I'm working remotely or something like that. That's probably the only exception to that importing or linking thing. So Revit has the ability to link a Revit file. So if you have a whole lot of townhouses or something like that, you can put them in as separate files. IFC, IFC is sort of the international BIM language. I've always got to Google what it means because I can never remember. So it's the industry foundation classes. So I sort of say it's the universal translator for BIM. So it means you can take a very dumbed down version of a Revit file into ArchiCAD or the other way, or into Tekla or other BIM programs, building information modeling programs. I don't think it does it very well. So just hope all your consultants are able to use Revit or things like that. So obviously we can link CAD files here. We can also link topography. So if your civil engineer or surveyor has done you a nice 3D CAD file with topo surface and things like that, you can link that in here. I don't think there's too many of those in Adelaide doing that sort of thing. You can do DWF markups. Got a question?
We are.
Oh.
We've got CAD camera that a camera that we can go out and pop.
I might have to get a file if you guys have a play. DWF markups.
We just cover your building site and just pop it.
I've never really used that tool. I think that goes back to when Autodesk had their markup program, which I don't think they've released again. You can put decals in, so as the picture suggests here, you can put a picture on a TV in a render, and it actually renders when you do the project as that. Tends to work for squares or rectangles. If you're doing a logo like the Ford logo that's an oval shape, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Point clouds. Everyone know what a point cloud is? So point clouds are sort of a radar scan of a room. So Tafe have got a camera that can do that now, I think. So it's pretty cool. And coordination models, obviously, for coordinating architect or your trades. You've also got a button here to manage links. So again, all those tools up there sort of come up here. This is where you can reload, unload, add, remove, sort of things. The import CAD, so you can just import a CAD file. You can import a GBXML, which is a green building XML file. So anyone use Design Builder? So you can export. Again, that doesn't get used very often here. Insert from file can be helpful. To anyone likely to have a whole lot of details, they might use wet area details, fixing details. Rather than having all those in your template file, I would have a details Revit project with all those drafting views or something like that in it, and then I would just import it into each project from there, sort of thing. I wouldn't, because you don't need, if you had 100 wet area details and only 2 applied, you don't need that taking up file space in your project. You can add images into Revit as well. So realestate.com floor plans, if you want the general shape of a house before you do a measure up or something like that. You can also manage the images there. And then you've also got, last week we did play around at the end with putting in some entourage and people and cars and things into that project. So when we get back into loading in some doors and windows tonight, I think last week I said the doors can only go via the door hole and the windows only via the window hole. If you go to insert and load family, that is the master key that lets any family into a project. It doesn't matter what type it is, it just lets you load that way. That's how I pretty much load all my families these days. I just go load family because I can never remember if some things are a detail or a symbol, and just it's heaps easier. And the other thing as well, I just make the keyboard shortcut LF, load family. It just goes to that one and it doesn't matter, sort of thing. And then you've also got load as group, which something that is probably covered more so in the intermediate one of this one, where you can actually try to think of a scenario where you use it. Group. So you can group a bunch of walls together, and then you can export it from Revit as a group, and then you can load those walls back into a different project as a group, sort of thing. It's helpful, but not very often. It's good. It's a good one to know it's there, but yeah, I don't use it that often. So we're going to go to, if you guys want to click on link CAD. So, important to say here, the options that come up now are the same for linking or importing. So these options are the same regardless. So you've got obviously your project or your folder to find where your thing is, the floor plan DWG. Downloads floor plan 1. So I do that out of habit, just going okay. So you've got an option here over on the left, say current view only. So generally that would be unticked. I hope you guys find it in a minute if you can't find your downloads. So if you tick that view or tick that box, it's only going to import that plan into the view that you're currently in. So I tend to untick that view and just have the CAD plan in all my views. You've got a couple of options here now. So you've got colors, you've got levels, layers and levels, and then import units. And then you've also got correct lines that are slightly off axis. So preserve or colors. So if it's a CAD file, you can keep your lovely colors. You can make them black or white, or you can preserve them or invert them. I tend to just preserve them. And then you've got your layers and levels. So you can specify all, visible, or you can specify the levels. So if I click on specify, we'll just go all on this one. So this CAD file came out of Revit. It wasn't drawn in CAD, so Revit does import quite nicely to CAD if you have external consultants that need to still use CAD. And then this is probably the most important one. So the import units. So auto detect should work most of the time. I tend to find the surveyor's drawings we get from the engineers don't, because they're drawn at scale, not drawn at 1-to-1.
Yeah, they use millimetre per metre.
Yeah. So I tend to change mine, and it's going to be a bit of suck it and see with files you get. I tend to change mine to metre if I know it's going to be an issue, sort of thing. For this file, we can just choose auto detect, and then correct lines that are slightly off axes. If you're importing a survey, obviously you want to untick that because there's no straight lines in the survey. And then the positioning and place at levels we have. So positioning specifies how you want to import the file to be positioned in the current view. Auto center to center, auto origin to origin, manual base point, manual center options. I tend to just choose manual center or manual origin. So again, it refers to the X, Y. So it can depend on what CAD file you're getting to and who you're getting it from. So I tend to just use manual center. For this one, we can just go auto center to center. And then generally place at, you only get the one level. And you also got to orientate to view. If you go open, and it thinks about it for a second, I get a lovely CAD file, smack bang where my house was drawn in Revit. Now, that worked nicely. I do sometimes get them at work. I'm going to fix this up. It's kind of like something like this. It's come in, it's loaded, it's gone okay, it's thought about it, and you're like, well, it's not there. So ZF is zoom fits. It's not very helpful. It's hard to tell if they're dots on the screen or
right corner.
Yeah. To be fair, this is pretty easy compared to some of the ones I've had, where they've been like 33 kilometers away from where my project base point is. So in this instance where, let's say we can't see our little dots or something like that, I would do a Windows select of everything like that, and you might be able to see something. A little pin might pop up or something like that. So I pin that in place. Generally, when you import stuff as well, it's pinned. So if I do something like that, notice how I get that little pin that comes up. Then I just try and zoom into that location with the mouse wheel, and then I'd unpin that and try and move it closer to where my project was drawn. It is a bit annoying. That's why I tend to use manual center. So if it doesn't work, you can undo it and reload it again and go manual center. If that doesn't work, it might be too small. Like I had one the other day that I imported, and I'm like, I can't see this. Where is it? And it was like 2 millimeters or something like that on the drawing in a building already, so it was hard to see. So I was like, I just reloaded it again, and I worked out it was too small, sort of thing. So there can be a couple of issues when you load in CAD files. Thankfully for this one, I'm going to undo what I've just done. It's not too bad. It should go straight to the middle. So has everyone got that in there? So we might have a quick break now. So we want to be back about 7:45, 20 to 8, and then we'll jump into drawing these walls and putting the doors and windows in. And that'll probably be it tonight.
Every 3 2 weeks and every day. Software, example, is running at least. If my friend does it, is like this.
What did you just say?
It's a limit per month, so you can put any stuff. If there is space.
Right.
So this area is what we got the sound area. This is the producing region. Some areas we can get very high. This much we can never input in your this one. You need two. There is no space, then in one only we can put everything, vanity and shower and everything.
This kind of house I have seen.
This is simple. In this one, how they do bedroom is because there is only two in one bedroom. There is only walk-in door for this one attached and also there is a common toilet extra. In this all bedrooms, there is no bedroom. They are having a built-in drain space. So it is having a bedroom with built-in drawer.
तो हमारे इंडिया जैसे हम ऐसे अच्छे इनोवेटिव डिजाइन
Like yeah,
कुछ नहीं
here maximum you will maximum here you will get only vacuum cleaner, not okay. This will be a mirror touching this boundary wall. This will be dining space. This one lamba passage jayega. Kavita hoga whatever. This is all rooms here and this one and this is kitchen and this facing to the backyard. This space will be more. ये half रास्ता करो. This all will require this. No, in this one you can do, but money is. He told no. To increase ceiling height also, if you have a lot of money, you can raise the ceiling. Otherwise, 2.7 mm is not enough. Shall we call on Saturday for volume?
Saturday. Oh yeah, I was about to ask you that.
I talked last week. He was saying that Saturday.
Okay. I finished that house looking at the apartment in Saturday. I showed it to you. It was 900 crore.
BCA.
Yeah. So
Normally we can't get books, but we can study online also by build test count only 60% if you go in whole Australia. 60% is max built up count.
that they didn't tell. They just covered the fire safety codes or doors.
Doors are only 900 and 800, but we give at 900. They principal doesn't at 900. They avoid this spring 40-40. If 900 door, you do at 820. So that is without praying. So clear you will get 820.
आपने ये सब कैसे आपको पता चला ये सारे
That's why explain what we are doing.
यहाँ पे क्योंकि ये सब नया है ना. So when you came here, so how did you get to know this? After working?
Yes, working. હવે હમણાં તો ગ્રીડ્સ અને એનું શીખવાડી લીધું હશે આપણે ફ્લોર પ્લાન સેટ કરીને બધા બરાબર ઓકે મને મંજુનો કોલ આવ્યો પણ મારા ઉપર જવું પડશે બરાબર હા તો લગાવી દે હા એને કહી દે આવી રીતે ક્લાસ કર્યો પછી લગાવીશું ચાલ ઓકે બાય जॉब बट
नहीं मुझे कॉफी बरिस्ता का भी जॉब चाहिए था दो हफ्ते से ट्राई कर रही हूँ
और अपना क्राइटेरिया पूरा करने के लिए 34 आवर्स ट्रैवलिंग भी होता है
आपके कितने हुए हैं अभी तक
मेरे में इसके साथ फिर 3-4 महीने इसमें काम किया है वीवीएन पे so he can give me later writing के लिए for 4 months फिर after 4 months उसने परमानेंट में बुलाया था किसी पर्टिकुलर वीक के लिए परमानेंट में 3 महीने का बुलाया और 4 महीने लीव के लिए उसके लिए गवर्नमेंट वांटेड अप्रूव में एवरी 35 आवर्स अराउंड करना तो ही महीने तो मेरा हो गया so इसमें से
तो अगर आपकी लाइक कॉन्टैक्ट्स में किसी के पास कोई पार्ट टाइम जॉब कुछ
तो कांटेक्ट होता है तो व्हाई नॉट रिफर
कुछ है
अब एग्जांपल देखो मुझे किसी ने फुल टाइम लगा दिया जॉब इम्पोर्टेंट तो कोई ने कभी कहा मतलब और ट्रेनिंग यू विल बी माय मैन एंड ऑल ये स्टफ तो मैं ऑलरेडी मैं जॉब शेयरिंग very simple unless and unless कोई और मेरे को मिल सकता है so for example if I am a meat company okay Revit or Tafe so then I can say I can let girl is there you call for me what to do part time job मेरी उधर कोई फ्रेंड्स नहीं
नहीं कर सकती टीचिंग हैंडल नहीं कर
कोई ग्रुप नहीं है मेरा तो वो सपोर्टर्स में आता रहता है कि हाँ मान लो इसका इधर मैंने अभी ऐसा
वो
कुछ
सारे अप्लाई कर रही हूँ
ऐसे ग्रुप पे कुछ मतलब कितनी बजे सीट्स है टोटल में
नहीं है सीट
कौन सा
सनफ्लावर
कितनी कितने का है कितनी सीट है का ले सकते हैं आप ये मतलब पॉसिबल
नहीं हो सकता ऐसा डाउट है पैसा वेस्ट मुझे रिलीज लेटर भी मिल गया फिर रिलीज लेटर तो मैं कहीं पे भी जा सकती हूँ
कैसे लीव लेटर
उनको ईमेल किया था कि मुझे जॉब नहीं मिल रहा उस एरिया में तो उन्होंने दिया है
मैं तो इधर गई मेरा सनशाइन कोस्ट है
सनशाइन कोस्ट मैसूर में भी है आप कौन से थे हाँ
नहीं मेरे वहाँ भी नहीं है मेरे यहाँ लैंड होने के बाद एक कंसल्टेंट पोजीशन ही इज वर्किंग 10-15 मिनट्स का बैंगलोर में वो उससे बोला आपको कोई जरूरत नहीं you can do anything
But you probably get caught up in a conversation. So.
See if I'm doing that. Listen to you.
What's that, Lee? Did you make that 240 watt?
Didn't make that 240 watt, I wanted to do that.
That's all there is, mate. It's a 250 that will modify it. I don't know why Revit haven't done a 240. I can't. Unless it's just a primarily South Australian thing that's people
It must be inches.
Probably. Yeah.
maybe, but it works out 90, like it's 90, 50, 110.
Right,
So it's not inches, like,
right,
so the air gap's 50.
which is two.
Then, oh. Yeah, I've got no idea what feet to inches and that is. Oh.
That's American. Get to the metric system. They try everything not to get to the metric system. They had the other day, the size of a sinkhole was like 4 washing machines big. It's like, what? There's 4 washing machines. What?
One of the podcasts I listen to, like quite often, most of them are American, and obviously there's been a few Australians whinging about giving measurements, and they're like, oh, we've converted to the metric for you people in Australia who asked for it. So we'll jump back in. So, I don't know about you guys, but I don't tend to like colours in my screen anymore, particularly multiple colours. So, going to introduce something new to you guys that you're going to use a lot of. It's called your visibility graphics, and that's not what I wanted. Up here in your properties, you have visibility and graphics overrides. So the keyboard shortcut for this is VV, V for Victor and V for Victor, or V for Victor and G for Greg. Gets you to the same tool, or it's here. So this is what everything. This is where you control what things you can see in your drawing, what they look like, just to this view. But we're going to go down to our imported categories straight away. And you'll notice we have our basic floor plan DWG here. Hit that plus, and if you hold down shift or select one, hold down shift and select all your layers. And override, you can change the color to whatever you want. I'm going to choose orange. Wouldn't suggest you guys select magenta, or one of the colors that you selected as your pre-select and selection color. So I think my pre-select is green, and then my selection color is red, so I wouldn't choose those. You can just do that just to make it a little bit easier to view. Scroll, which one did you select? Yeah, there you go. Select overrides, then you can change that. So you go. Next one up, sorry, just cancel that. Yeah. Then we go to import categories and plus. Maybe that tick mode goes back on. Yeah. And then hit that tick as well. Hit the plus. There. And then we just hit select one, hold down shift. So you don't want it, you want to unselect it.
This one.
Oh, okay. If you just hold down shift and just select the import thing, it's just come up with coals and hold it on. Way back up to the top. So you just use the mouse when you scroll up. And you can you can, sorry, select that one, scroll down.
Not a red thing.
How do I change my
That's okay.
colour?
And then you just go right there and you can choose whatever color
How do
you
I
want to
change
change.
my colour?
Mine's not orange.
So go to visibility graphic overrides.
Plus. That's right, plus.
So
Shift.
So you just so you're supposed to go to import categories. So you just double. So you just do the same again. So you select all import, just select all there. Click in that one. Click in that line. Yep. Hit overrides.
Clear.
And then import categories.
Oh no, I did that. I just didn't.
Sorry?
So is that just because I didn't
Yeah.
clear it?
So I tend to just do the CAD file I'm using, not
Oh yeah.
the import like imports in families. So we just hit the plus there. Oh yeah. Hit plus and then select those. For some reason that doesn't work. You'd think if you did that one, it'd apply to all those.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. A bit silly. In your visibility graphics, you don't want to untick the imports in families. So if I untick that plan, obviously it will turn off my floor plan. If I go back in there, turn that on. If I untick import in families, some families have CAD files in them. I'm trying to think. The cars that you might have imported last week have a DWG file in them for the floor plan. So in 3D it looks like it's there, you know, it's there, it looks cool. In your camera views it looks cool. In your floor plan you can't see it. That's the one family I can think off the top of my head. That's why I don't untick that families one. That one's always ticked, sort of thing, just because you don't know who's made the family and what it might have in it. So there's a couple of things here that. So first thing, now we've got a CAD file in there. I'm just going to open up our east elevation. We're going to go 2730 ceilings, and we'll name that ceiling level. And we'll rename our corresponding views. And you might just want to name ground floor, like our floor plan, or you could leave it as ground floor. I'm not really fussed. And then we just want to minimize our ceiling plans, just so we don't accidentally open up our ceiling plan by mistake. So now we can go back to our ground floor plan. So is yours pinned in place, or is it like I can move mine? So if you can move it, just pin it in place, just to make sure it doesn't move accidentally on you or anything like that. You'll also notice there's a couple of options over here in our properties. So the base level, you can set the base level for your CAD file. You can also set the offset. Won't need to worry about that too much for this one. If you check your 3D, you should have your CAD file in it too. Again, it won't have the overrides to make the graphics the orange that I've selected or whatever color you selected. It'll just come in as the CAD file. So we'll start drawing our walls. So it's a bit hard to see, but so in Revit, some people, I'm not going to accuse anyone, but some people occasionally, so it's a bit hard to see when I made it all orange, but they'll start here, they'll draw a wall there, they'll draw there, they'll stop, they'll come down here, they'll stop at the door, they'll come and draw this, stop at the window, draw that little bit, stop at the window, do that bit. You need to draw a continuous wall around the building because doors and windows are hosted elements. They need to go into a wall to actually be placeable in a project. So when we're drawing this in a minute, we just want to continue drawing around the entirety of the building, not just stopping at where the windows are, otherwise the windows won't have a host.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Very for a second.
Yep. Yeah. So it's all essentially all the same template. It's just the construction architectural example just sets it up slightly differently. So, no, that's okay.
That's right, I don't mind. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. You said 2700.
Well, 2700 is the ceiling height. I overlay it to 2730, sort of thing. That's just habit. So we're going to go draw our walls now. So we're going to architecture wall. You want to save this project. I'm just going to save it to my downloads. So we're going to choose brick veneer. So Revit has a 250 steel or a 250 timber. So you can select, I don't care if it's steel or timber, which one you select, just select one of them. I tend to use timber. So you want to now, because take my word for it. Our wall is 240. Oops. So I just mentioned that and show you guys if I can click. So our brick veneer wall is 240, so 90 mil stud, 110 mil brick with a 40 mil air gap. So we go back to wall. So we want to click on edit type. So 99 times out of 100, you always want to duplicate a wall or an element before you modify the size and shape of that element. But 1 time out of 100 is when you want to affect everything in the project of that element to change the size or shape. So in this instance, this is the 1 time out of 100. We're going to just rename our wall 240 timber or 240 steel, and then we're going to change the structure. So if you just come up to here and rename, and we go brick veneer 240, I'm going to change mine to 4, and you click OK. So your architecture wall. Just 240 instead of 250. So does everyone rename their wall?
Not quite.
Yeah, Bill is 240. 250, sorry. Next one up.
This one?
No. Edit type. Trigger name.
I don't even have that 250 wall in my list. Does that mean I'm on completely wrong?
That might be why too.
Something I can't find. Is it now that you've gone ahead of me? Like, I can't find it.
I could create you another you reckon you will?
Could rename them all.
How do you rename it? So edit type. And then rename here. So renaming only names, it only makes the name to field 40, doesn't actually change the structure, so it doesn't change our size or shape. So I'll put my hand up, I'm a culprit for it. I'll duplicate a window, I'll type in the new size, I'll forget to change the dimensions in the structure. Just because I'm like, it should remember or know, but no. So walls are a little bit different. So now you want to come down to construction and hit structure, and under a structure tab or button, hit edit, and then so our wall has 110 mil masonry brick brown, air infiltration barrier of 50 mil, and then our timber stud at 90. So we just want to change our air infiltration to 40, and then we can just go OK and OK. And now when we draw a wall, it'll be set to 240. So that again was under structure, hit edit, and then there we can just change that to 40. So when you exit out of that, it should come up under here with a width of 240. Change the air. Yep. Change the air to 40. Yeah. Okay. So everyone's renamed it. Yep. Cool. You can click OK and OK. You'll get used to clicking OK like up to 5 times, I think, sometimes. So now before we start drawing our walls, we just want to verify the heights and things. So we want to connect it to our ceiling level. The location line for this one, I'm going to select it as finish face exterior. So the reason why I've selected finish face exterior is as we're drawing these walls, if I was to choose it as wall center line's a bit hard to select. Finish face interior is really good to select for sort of these ones. But this one, as you can see, it doesn't really have a corner to select. The only issue with selecting finish face exterior is this is going to potentially give us a little bit of a problem because the door frame is slightly wider than our wall, and getting in there is going to be a little bit more tricky. But there's pretty much a good click point around the exterior of our building. So that's why I've chosen finish face exterior for this one. So sometimes you just got to make a decision of which way you want to do it. And quite often I just leave it how I last had it. So it's up to you guys how you want to do it. For this one, we'll just do it as finish face exterior. Verify that change selected. We don't want any offset. So it's just a matter of coming around now. So if you get that little square, that means you've selected the endpoint. And then it's just a case of clicking around to the next square. And then you might just need to zoom in quite a lot for this one to make sure it should snap to like horizontal or vertical. If it doesn't want to snap there, if you type SE on the keyboard, which is snap end, it'll snap to any point, like end point of a line. So just make sure, or you can hold down shift as well. So shift will keep it in a vertical or horizontal plane. It won't let you go off by 1 degree or 2 degrees or whatever. So just zoom in a bit, hold down shift until you get to that endpoint. And then it's just a case of now just going around the rest of the building and clicking the external corners. And then you can come back to your start point. Oh, so I think you click there, where you should have clicked there. So you can hit escape just the once, and then you come in here. See how it gets that endpoint. So you click there now and keep drawing. Now, there's two things that I forgot to disclose to you. Generally, always want to draw in a clockwise direction. And for this one, you might want to change your detail level to medium so you can see your brick. So the reason why you generally want to draw in a clockwise direction, and I'm not going to get it to do it now. So I selected finished face interior and drawn it in a So if I draw it in an anti-clockwise direction, see how my brick is now on the inside of the building and not on the outside? So generally draw it in a clockwise direction, except for the final project we're going to do, ask you to draw in an anti-clockwise direction, but we'll ignore that for the moment. And I would always tend to just change the detail level to medium or fine, rather than having it as coarse, because then you can see the hatch and make sure it's the right way around, unless you're building reverse brick veneer. And then the other thing as well, because you've got the 3D view, you can chuck on the other screen, you can see it, make sure, just do that, or check a 3D view once you've drawn the walls to make sure they're in the right spot and going up to the right level, so you can grab the level, cool, no walls go through it. And then it's the same process again with our internal walls. So we're at architecture wall. If you have chosen the timber studs, draw it with timber studs. If you've just chosen the steel studs, choose the steel studs. This one, the location line doesn't matter so much. I'll give you a really good tip here though. If I could work out how to draw it wrong. So notice how I'm drawing my wall now on the incorrect side. If I hit the space bar, that flips our wall on the location line. So to be fair, I'd just hit the space bar, I wouldn't try and redraw it. So this one as well, I would draw, so you could untick chain here, and I could draw that wall in individually, come up here and draw that one in individually, and go to that one. Or the other way you could do this sort of thing is to have chain selected. Where am I going to go? Come up here, I'd hit spacebar to flip it, hit escape once, come over here, I hit the spacebar to flip it because I've drawn it the wrong way, hit escape once. I tend to hit the escape button because I never remember to hit untick chain. So the spacebar there is probably better. Sorry, the escape button just the once is probably better than. So again, you want to draw over the internal walls as well, doors as well. And then if you accidentally hit escape once or twice to get out of the tool, you can just select another wall that you've already drawn and come up to create similar to continue going, or you could go back to the tool, architecture tool, to keep drawing. So if you guys have got a CAD file, you can see it's quite a quick way to draw a house. So just want to. Yeah, we know he's there. Yeah. And then just do a quick okay. That's okay, we can do that later. 2730. 24 is the minimum, and if it hasn't reached, you guys don't too much work it has. So you want to take the wall all the way through though, can you? So you can grab that. Oh, they don't leave it. So that would be.
There's that little bit there I didn't realise.
Yeah. So you just. So the other thing you can do as well is you can just click on that line. When you click off it, you can just drag it up a bit. And then yeah, continue going and it should just trim it together. So, if you guys are struggling to get the corners in that, thin lines is up in the quick access toolbar. It's the third button in from the right. So it just makes everything like thin, not thick. It won't print like that. It's just a good one to see. For some reason it snapped to something there. Snap. Why did it snap to that end of the hatch? Not the actual corner.
It'll be running close to see.
Well, generally, yeah, apparently. Because mine did it too, so yeah. Obviously, all the same cut bar. To see how that looks. And now the thin line's gone. It looks a bit better. I think before it was like just slightly down.
Yeah, it was just one.
So, yeah. And then down here, you hold down shift. So, no matter how much you move the mouse, it can just come into the point. So you can hold down shift to do it all. So you can't zoom out when you hold down shift.
I'm getting right on
Around and
at
around.
the getting starting again. I got
Nice acute angle there.
Also like a little bit fence like
Yeah, I will make sure you have. So you can use the align tool. Yep. So remember the first click is where you want it to go. So it would be that line. Second click is when you the element you want to move. Click it that way.
yeah, right. But is that one here? Oh, that's a little bit loose.
So that one that needs to go through. So but you so if you hit modify, you just grab that wall there, grab that blue dot, and just drag it all the way through. And it's done.
So which one's your number?
So this one, that one, so here's a problem. So your image is up here behind, so that's your problem. So that one as well. So just as you do this down here, change that from coarse to uniform. Yeah, it doesn't work. And then up here, stick that three thick line with thin line. That makes it easier. This one down here, just change that to 9. So I think you might want to put a shape so it can be covered. Yeah, so these, so the line tool is and you can try that one.
इसको कॉपी कर दी ऐसे ले जा रहेगा ना
So sometimes that doesn't work, and it will remove this one as well. which I probably won't be able to replicate on the screen.
Yeah.
So that's generally the way these things happen.
Yeah.
Is when I want to show you guys a known issue, it won't do it for me.
Got it.
So we walk in. So see how all the walls. So that's how they look. They're all going above it, which is it's easy to do. So I reckon we either started with so you get an architectural wall. It's unconnected, so it should be set to serial height. So it's easy to fix after the fact this early. If you keep going down those things, it'll be a bit harder to fix. So it's just that I just left everything. Come over in copies. And choose that
I delete it.
no, again. When you go back to
I wasn't snapping it in the right spot.
So we've got all of our walls in. Now, I'm probably not going to be able to replicate the issue that I sometimes have with walls. But if, for instance, here I've accidentally it's not quite aligned, I'd go in and use the align tool and align elements. But it's not going to do it for me today. Just trying to think how I can replicate. So sometimes if I use the align tool that way, it'll move that exterior wall as well. Like it'll move it, so it'll look exact like the plasterboard wall on the inside will be lined up, but the brick wall on the outside will be the exact same off. So sometimes it's just worth dragging the blue dot off, then aligning it, and then dragging it back. If you get that sort of chasing your tail, moving one wall and the other one goes out of the way. I can't replicate that issue tonight, so trust me, it happens sometimes. Room separator lines seem to be the ones that cause it the most, but that's it. So we're going to go through and we're going to do our internal doors first. Apparently I missed a tag on this file, so the bathroom doors and the WC doors are 720s. Everything else is 820s. So we're going to do our internal doors first. So you need to load that cavity sliding door family in as well. So if you go to the architecture tab and door and load family, and we want to go to our doors. And for this one, we're going to use our single timber frame AUS door. Just open that one. So this one you'll notice has, so we have our M single flush door, which is the standard one, which I think as we worked out last week was inches to millimeters. That's why it's weird. And then we have our 720, 820, 920, 45 degrees, 135. I've never really used them. So these ones, we're just going to use the 820s and the 720s. So again, it's a case of just putting it in the project. You can use the space bar again to sort of flip the swing of the door. And don't worry about the architraves not fitting in this one or the swings lining up as well. I think it was a different door family was used for this, but These ones look a bit better. If you can't get it to place correctly, like I can't at the moment, you can use your line tool to line up your doors as well. So those drawing tools that we went through last week are quite, obviously, you know, you can start using them here. So you've got to place it and then you can align it. So go around and place those in. So that laundry door, the cavity slider, you'll have to load in from where your downloads were. The opening that we had here for from our entry to our living area is actually, I gotta remember this. It's under structural, and it's a door opening, and then it's just placing it in.
How do you put that living area one on there?
So that's under low family doors, and then structural, and it's a door opening.
Right.
Or technically it's a wall opening, but door opening, same thing. Where's our internal cavities? So for those of you that have loaded in your door opening, we sort of need to know how wide our opening is. So under our graphic display options down here on the bottom left of the screen, so we have our scale, we have our view display graphic. You've got here, you've got wireframe, hidden line, shaded, consistent color, and realistic. Wireframe is actually quite helpful. So I click on wireframe now. In this instance, if I go to 3D, wireframe looks pretty trippy, particularly once you start loading up windows and all that other stuff. But in your floor plan, going to wireframe allows you to see through the walls you've created, so you can measure stuff or dimension to stuff in 3D or elevations. So I'll measure ours. So it's an 1800 wide opening. So we just have to duplicate our door opening go 1800 wide, and then just change our width to 1800. And then you should be able to move it to the right spot. Wireframe is not something I used to really use a lot until I watched another lecturer videos, and I was like, oh, that's actually really handy. It just takes a little bit to actually wrap your head around.
Not sure if I'm placing these doors right.
You are. It's just the door in the CAD file is different to the door in the Revit project, like the swing.
Okay.
So don't fret too much about that.
No, I didn't take all the walls all the way through.
Oh, so you want to do that?
Oh.
Otherwise, the walls have got the doors are going to move posts.
Screws for me just slide door to the kitchen.
Yep. So you go to the load thing.
Architecture.
Find downloads or USB. Yep.
Door panel.
That's the two.
This one.
This one.
Single timber.
So that's why you want to for this one.
No, for the laundry. So that one's living, but we got like that was off the content, and then that one.
Opening. So opening.
This one downloads.
Because that
That's just the same for the door.
I will do that because where it is
Yeah.
I not able to see.
Yeah, it's a bit. The opening's there, so it might probably I found it easy just to put it in and then move it after the fact.
Sliding.
So you go to where your downloads were.
Yeah. Sliding thing.
No, that's your doors. So you just go to my computer. Go to USB. So it's to USB. Oh, this one.
You guys slide them onto the thing.
No, they won't. So the swing and the laundry door is actually the family. So it's got that dog leg point when you slide under.
This one here, like the one here, which one's the.
No, so that won't. So that one's a different door anyway. So
Very
I'll just delete that one. We'll go through add that one.
Not in the door.
That the external ones.
Got that in
Yeah. So that one.
I thought that. I'm like, no, it was an internal doors.
Yeah. Oh, so edit type.
Yeah.
Duplicate it like because you only want it like if you have these in your project you don't want to affect them. So you just make that 1800 by just leave it as 2134.
So
This one.
Yeah, duplicate. And then oh no, so you need to change the size edit type again. I do that all the time. So you need to change that rough width to 1800.
which one needs to be 1800 to
The 19 915, sorry.
1800 to.
Yeah.
Hang on, that didn't change. That's another thing that one didn't change.
It's like I get this call in the habit where I write the door size and window size that I'm making and I forget to change it.
Yeah. Should I make that? Yeah, I just did that and I'm like, that didn't move at all. So that was a bit double width now. What it is. So.
So there's two openings, there's two or three openings actually. So if you go to your load, just go to insert. Insert tab. So if you go to this one.
हमें क्लास में अरे सर इसमें क्या है ना मैं ले जाऊँगा कितने बजे क्योंकि कल मेरा भी स्कूल में मीटिंग है 8:30 तो जल्दी बहुत नो इश्यूज कल मेरा वो ग्रेजुएशन का मीटिंग करते हैं ना उसे 8 से पहले तो कल 8:30 बजे मेरी मीटिंग मैं ले जाऊँगा उसको 8:50 मैं लिंक कर रहा हूँ डोंट वरी ओके
Automatically. Why did you go about 6? Why is something like that? Why is it from the other?
Draw over there, using the edit type duplicate. Yeah, Revit type sort of thing.
Well, that's got 400 fabric, that one.
That one is.
Let's download that.
Learn.
To make this opening, it's this one.
Yeah.
Split element.
Oh no. So split element would be like if you didn't want to have. So the opening has a bulkhead. So the opening is literally no door.
Okay.
So it has a bulkhead sort of thing across.
So that.
So we did a split element, and then took out the middle bit. It'd just be there'd be nothing above. Sort of thing. It's a bit hard to show you.
But I would try.
Yeah, essentially.
So split.
It's wrong.
No, it's right. Yeah.
But how can I change it?
I think it's the top.
Just one.
Yeah. So it's minus off the level. So I don't use that one. That's okay.
I choose water and then these
Yeah.
that I want.
So has everyone loaded in that cavity sliding door family for the laundry?
I'm just doing that now.
So if I go back, so we're going to load in our laundry door with our window and our entry door with our side light. Now, if I go architecture door again, I'll save the project. Load family. Revit takes you back to where you last loaded something in from now. So to get back to the library that comes with Revit, in this little panel you've got on the left, yours is probably all the way down the bottom, probably the second from the bottom, you have this metric library folder. If you click on that one, that will take you back to the generic Revit content. That's why mine is now at the top. So if I load stuff off a USB or off my downloads folder, I can go back to the content there. So that's sort of, you can also drag and drop folders in here so that you use regularly. So you guys might want to put a plumbing folder in there if you use it regularly. And you can just remove it. And then also, I tend to have it there anyway. There's some stuff that you go into, that's not the, trying to think where you go into lots of clicks. So like sometimes if you go into folders, it can be 3 or 4 clicks. So rather than clicking back or up 4 times, you can just click on that button and it takes you back to the top. Because there's nothing worse than having to go back and up and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go back to my downloads. So I can never remember which one. So one of these families is a window family and the other one is a door family. I'm going to try the entry door with side light for a door. Oh, I got it right. So the entry door with the side light is a door family. The laundry door with a dogleg door, a dogleg window is a window family, which we'll get onto next. Don't worry about the swing. Oh, the swing should be fine for this one actually. So again, it's probably one of those ones that it's just being a bit of a pain. So I'm just going to put it in there, and then I'm going to use the space bar after to place it, and then I'll just move it up to be in line with the brick. You over? No, you've got a warning over here. So just go no.
When we get this one?
Which one? The entry?
That door, yeah, entry door.
So where those downloads were. So you find that on your computer. So go my computer. If you save it to your hard drive, it'll be my computer. My computer. Did you save it to your hard drive or they?
No, I have to save.
Oh, okay, so we go back to learn. Yeah. And just click on those. That one. Save file. Okay. Click on that one. Save file. Okay. Door. Save file. So for those guys who have sort of put all their doors and they're onto their windows now, I'll quickly show you guys the difference between windows and doors really. So again, you go to Windows, Load Family. I'm going to let you guys select whatever sort of window style you want to put in. So Revit's got awnings, casements, double hung, and sliding. I tend to just use the awning. For this one, I'm just going to choose the one type of window across the whole project, or maybe the two sort of thing, and just go open. So when you load a door into Revit, it will come in with all the predetermined sizes. So you notice that ours had the 720, 820, 920 in the existing ones. When you load a window in, it will only let you sort of put in one window size at a time. So it comes up with this other dialog box with the sizes of the windows. So you'll notice this first one here is an 1800 high by 2410 wide. You'll notice here that we don't have, well, there's an 1810 high, but it's not by a 2410 wide. So you're going to actually have to edit type, duplicate it, change the sizes of the windows. So it doesn't really matter which size you select, I guess, for this one. I'm just going to choose the 1800 high anyway. And then I'm going to come up here, go edit type, duplicate it. So I want 18 by 24. And then I change that to 2410. And I'll make that 1800 high. And OK. And then I can place it. The other thing you've got in here as well, I hope, down the very bottom of your windows, you have a default head height setting. So you might want to make that 2150 or 2322. And then all the windows you put in of that type. So I put in one now. I can come to this one. I'd go edit type, duplicate, go 12. So that's all you need to do for your windows. Is just and just keep going around the project, putting the windows in.
Is that a specific one you can load it in, or is that just?
Nah, whatever you want.
So we can just load whatever we want.
Whatever windows we want.
Whatever windows you want.
So we're like, what window are you putting in?
Yeah, I was just sure if you just wanted to do it.
No, I don't do it.
So as long as they're these sorts of sizes.
Yeah.
Is there any way, like, that you can put like the sheets back and forth so that, like, 'cause at the moment you can't see what's.
No, not you can go in here, you can't see. It's a bit annoying.
That's what's frustrating is that it's, you know, difficult to send things back.
Okay.
You can see, like, if you like trace something, you can say, well, I want this element in front of it because that's what I want to see.
No, so that'd be wireframe or you can temporarily hide elements too.
No, I was just, so they also have, like, if you go to different levels, you can ghost it. So obviously you put them on like that that you use, and you can ghost it and see the like trace of it.
No, there's no layers through it.
No.
So that, yeah. You can sort of do that with underlay, which we'll probably touch on next week. So underlay, it's a really bad name. It's more, it turns the layer levels on above or below. and then you can look up or look down now. So you can look up services or you can look down at point work sort of thing.
No, I just thought it'd be really good to if you're tracing things, or you can actually say, I want to see what the ceiling height looks like on the floor plan. So you can say, I want to see the ghost or the traces that, like 3 stories above, or if it's on the ground floor, you can still see.
Yeah, unfortunately it hasn't got that functionality. Sounds like it'd be nice.
Well, it is handy if you say want to see I don't know how other levels are affected and things like that in your you want to see how your walls are like from one floor to the next.
Yeah.
You go up all the trace over and just see. Or
That's
just
probably underlay is probably
उसमें से awning
the tool for that.
Yeah.
Or I tend to just draw a section and
उसमें there is
make
no
sure
right.
that, you know.
It's just a handy bit, like if you went, oh, we're going to put a laundry sheet in and I want to see what it hits from ghost, whatever levels you want, and it's got colour and
The reference paints is
Yeah.
probably what I have been using lately for laundry sheets. So I just draw reference
Yeah.
planes and then I go out to the blue. None of that's
So we have to change.
Yeah.
Or I used to just draw detail lines and then copy and paste in the same place, and then probably forget to delete one at some point and things like that. So
This is good in terms of if you do the wall, the dimension that is reserved.
there's none.
Not some of the older versions you can't.
Oh, okay.
Just see that, but
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like those things get jammed
Yeah.
and lose all their bad points.
Yeah, you can get the libraries from the standard library now if you add one into Revit.
Yeah, well, Windows here is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the sizes actually matter. I've got knives there and there, like all the different sizes. But don't quote me on that one. I didn't make a family, so. Yeah. Yeah, just doesn't look good. So just hit escape and modify. And then you can use the arrows or you can hit the space bar to sort of go to the nice spot. Now the reason why yours looks different to the CAD file, even though they're the same family, is the detail level. So you change this detail level down here from medium to fine. Just to close that. Notice how you get the handles. Go to medium. And use the handle. So that's sort of where detail level in drawing can be good with that. Oh, this is sliding door button. Just.
No, it's a case of window. I'm just making it too long. I put it there,
Jeez.
and I want to move it that way.
That's a big piece of glass.
4.5 meters up. It's a massive window.
How many guys are on site for that?
What's the difference between?
That's how big my sliding door is in my house. 4.5 meters. That's why I did it that way.
Between the width and the height?
Uh,
Like which one should rather be?
so the width.
Is actually what you'll see, or?
The width is what you see. The rough width, I think. Can be.
No, I just thought, I was just wondering why I've got dimensions and which ones I should be filling out.
from there.
Yes,
See how
change.
you're
Yeah.
looking.
So it's always the width,
Expensive.
not the rough, like full rough width.
Why not
Right?
just change it? That's
Align
fine.
with.
It's fine.
Yeah. So I don't know how you can measure him.
Yeah, I sort of wondered why.
So there's no, so those reference rates that you mentioned too, there's no
What if I can change it?
additional reference rate that you can measure to. So, yeah. Simply
I
out.
thought I might bring out the wrong.
No,
Four metre walls. We like that lower.
four. I've got 8 metre walls. So, it's easy to do, particularly when you're used to separate stuff. So, you've got a couple options. Do it in 4 metre or you can do it 3D. So you just click on this, select everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you guys the filter here.
No.
So you can filter.
Please
You can
change the
check none. You can just check the walls.
Yep.
Then you can
Main size selection.
then you can go, yeah, select the level over here.
Yep.
And then it's across, yeah, across the down the straight. Then if you take that to 8 meters.
Well, I change that to 2700, but I think that's why the new field is lock space to a degree.
Well, it's just an undefined height. So you can come in, so the other way you can do it, which is not the way it applies. So you can say that as unconnected.
Yeah.
And that would have been 8 meters before. Yeah, right. And then you can come here, you can go 27. Cool. What it looks like. Customer goes, I want to go 3 meter ceilings now.
Yeah.
You're like, you have to go around and change all those numbers.
If they're unconnected.
Yeah.
So better if they're connected.
Connected to something is always good rather than not connected.
Yeah.
Generally, like if I do brick piers or something like that, I find like our standard size quite popular at the moment. It's got handy in style, so it's got bricks up high, and then it has then it's just posts.
Oh, right.
Around the
Yeah.
bricks.
Yeah, I know the ones.
So I just sort of I just do a little bit of elevation. I should have been told the one.
Yeah.
Just work out maths.
Yeah.
But so you can say like, I want that to be 300 off of the level.
Yeah.
Rather than putting another level in that, probably hard to do it. Because again, like particularly for us, we do bricks is probably 2/3 for 2 stories, and then the rest of the other stories lightweight. So that's how I would do that.
Yeah, right.
Right, I would just like go. If that was top level, I'd just go 560 off, and then have a wall.
Yeah.
But this one doesn't really go too much. It's easy enough to fix up. It's sort of everyone. You can imagine like once you put a roof on and all that stuff, it sort of gets a bit harder to fix.
Yes, I would. Because they almost have to disconnect the roof take off and.
You don't have to, like if you set your roof to your ceiling level, it's fine. You just have to hide it, and then, or you just have to use a film tool and grab all your walls and move them down. Gets a little bit more tricky once you start doing offsets and things like that. But all walls are at different heights.
Yep.
Hey, I already one window. This side is 1800.
Yep.
Okay. To go and duplicate this one.
Yep.
This height is 1800 already. I have saved.
Yep. So then you want to change your width here to 1800. Sorry, 1200.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1200. Consensus to
That's the wrong topic, sorry. Oh, you can't look. You've got the cavity. Is it a cavity slider you're trying to put in there, or is it the other one?
the downloaded
So, um, one of the two external doors is a window, and the other one is a door. So, door. So you've got that cabin slide.
This is a sliding door. 20 into normal.
Yeah, two. Load family. So that one's the cabin slider internal 20. I don't know why it's got a percentage in there. It's a bit annoying. That one's the cabin slider. And then load. Oh, you've already got that one in there. So the other one is a window. So you can load. So that one's a window. Now it comes in. Don't ask me why it's a window versus a door. So it's a window so back when the person made the family, they started with the window family template, not a door family template. So it's forever going to be known as a window, even though it's technically a doorway and a window. Yep. 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 So you go to the learn site. The learn site. Yep. Nice. Yep. So it's just the same as doors. So we just find that. Yeah. Yeah. If you save it to your desktop and go to the same computer next week, which will be fine. Yeah. Anyone you want there, all you two hours. So the difference between the windows and the doors is it's a file size thing. So doors are relatively simple. Windows are a lot more complex, typically, and they come in a lot more sizes and things like that. To be fair, all the sizes in Revit, which for Australian standards, are not. They're not. So I would just choose one and then just duplicate it and change the size and things like that.
Yeah, duplicate and change the size.
Rather than trying to load in one for that, because then the sizes I can't load for us. Sort of thing.
So I can choose any.
Yeah, just choose any of them. And I always find the way that twin messes in my head because it's always height by width, not width by height, sort of thing. So, no, that's okay. That's okay. So we can.
This door is downloading. Revit cannot allow to.
No, so the laundry door is a window. So you go back to cancel that one and go into go to Windows and load it in via that way. Cancel. And go architecture and window and load family.
Okay, it is in window, not this one. Okay.
Yeah. So the person who made it as a window family,
yes, window family,
not a door family.
Not a door family.
It's those ones are sort of a bit questionable if they're. Oh no, ours are door families at work. So just someone's made our stuff. So it was a door family. So I reckon that's probably a good place to leave it. So most people putting windows in now. Who's finished putting windows in? I obviously haven't, but cool. Did you put that in as a window or just like a door, which doesn't really matter? But
I didn't even know that that was a sliding door.
Nah, that's okay.
Where did you find that? Like a drop-in truck?
It's a door. In the doors, those family doors, I think. Oh, it's okay. So go back to doors. Go back to doors. I think it's like the two panel. No, it's got panel. No, it's down the bottom. Sliding two panel. Yeah. So if you can save this project to your hard drive, USB drive, or desktop if you haven't got one. So we're going to use this next week. So we'll put a roof on it, we'll do a floor, we'll do a ceiling as well. And that'll probably be it for this project. And then we'll start the next one again. Or the next one. So the next project we're going to do. So we're going to draw this house up. Except we're not going to have a CAD file to start with. So it's exactly the same thing we've done tonight. Except this one's actually got door sizes and window sizes that are in the program. So we'll do a colour fill plan as well, and that will probably take us probably a session and a half as well. So until next week, try and enjoy some sunshine on Saturday because I don't think Sunday's supposed to be very nice.
Sunday is rainy at least.
Yeah.
3 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Oh. I haven't looked that far.